us off in the temperature check?
Yes, Tam. Temperature check, it's warm. It's still warm. I don't think we still have like reached or gotten close to like some solutions to our current troubles, but I feel that we're in a very like good spirit at the moment. So yeah, hopefully we can raise the temperature in the rest of this sprint. I'll pass it to Gideon.
Thanks, Chewy. I would say, I don't know, warm to hot. Lot of movement on sample right now. We're in today's call, we're gonna go over our funding proposal and try to get that up and then passed as quickly as possible. Let's see what else. Just lots of conversations on like service ideas and fundraising ideas and things like that. There's a lot of stuff bubbling right now. I will pass to Livia.
Thanks, Gideon. I've been thinking about how the working groups have become quite solidified, and how maybe it's important to bring more fluidity to it. Like for initially, the idea was that working groups would have an end date and that would open space for other groups to emerge. So how, in terms of communications of our structure with calls and everything, have we solidified the working groups? And maybe it would be beneficial to look into like what are possible end dates, and are there other groups wanting to emerge, and that maybe there's no space for them. Like, are we occupying more space than that is somehow preventing something else from to emerge? And I'll pass to Juanca.
Thanks, Livy. Well, I feel that right now things are starting to get a little bit more warm or like fresh in gravity. I felt like the past weeks I was almost like in a so hot temperature that was uncomfortable a little bit. But I think like right now things are flowing. The second session of the Graviton training will be today. Also, the collaboration with Aragon is starting to make some impact visible. So I think that we were making a strong effort, and right now things are flowing more. So I feel more calm than before. And I'll pass to Mert.
Thank you, Juanca. So my temperature is kind of low because I'm feeling sick, but in terms of work progress, like I'm super happy about how proposed inverter turning out in terms of UX design. Like we're almost there. We started to do like more UI rather than UX now, so it's developing fast. And I would love to help our people in TC to get involved more, like with the comms team, etc. So that's in that sense, it's high. Other than that, I I have kind of like a interesting idea I would like to share. So I texted Livia about this potential research, and she liked it. Then I thought maybe labs. So we are kind of as far as we are kind of looking for a kind of new purpose for labs. I think labs can like kind of chime into this research working as like simulators. So, for example, the TLDR of this research is that how the token engineering parameters affect our model behaviors, and how is it different in DAO space compared to like traditional token engineering, aka central banking. So maybe labs group can like chime in. I would like to talk with YGG what he is thinking about, but it will be interesting experiment to use like cat modeling and like personal modeling of how the token engineering parameters affect our moral behaviors and shape our society, like little community, let's say. So I wanted to hear your opinion as well about this. So that's my temperature check.
And we could pass it to Zep.
Thanks, Tom. Yeah, temperature check's good. Like things are moving. I mean, many things like we're just waiting. Like CoinGecko thing, like they just sent an email yesterday saying like they need some time to review, but it should come anytime soon. The same thing for the water and one hype is working. Then designers also waiting for them, but yeah, the proposal go out, and then Rex and Bear are doing a great job with the template for standardizing data. I mean, I feel like things are moving, and yeah, I feel good. I'll pass it to Bear.
Thank you, Septi. Yeah, for me, it's also, I think, warm. A lot of progress and a lot of things going on with Gravity and with the website creation. I think that's really cool, and there's been some progress there. Also with Sample and all the different initiatives that are being taken on at the same time. So I think that's really good, and as well in transparency, I think a lot of important conversations are being happening and progress as well. So yeah, it's been really fun. I'll just pass it to Nate.
Thanks, Bear. Yeah, don't have much to add. I just catching up on everything and seeing how everybody's doing. So I'll pass it over to Mert.
Mert went, but Edu hasn't.
Edu it is.
Hello, Nate. Thank you. Hello, everyone. So temperature check. It's nice. It has been surprisingly slow week. Like everyone canceled the meetings that I had with them these 2 days. So I suddenly found my calendar free. So it was such a relief these 2 days. So I highly appreciate the time. And besides that, temperature check. It's nice. I feel just a little bit of reservation with so many proposals for funding coming. We have 4 proposals, I think, that are going to be put up soon. So that brings always a little bit of reservation from my part. But besides that, I think the worst part of the situation that we may be, we are starting to build from that, and we are starting to seeing what are the possibilities when we sort of put our heads together and see where it can lead. So I'm excited to see how things unfold. And with that being said, I pass it on to Griff.
GM. Yeah, I'm temperature check is, it's good, it's soft. I feel like this last week I didn't hear a lot of interesting things from the TC, but I was really focused on Commons Prize and the Giveth stuff. So but I mean, other than of course Gravity is in full swing and the classics, I feel like we're doing a great job at making sure we're grinding it out. But it's like, I don't know, maybe it's the ADD culture. It's like I didn't really feel like I heard any like loud bangs from TC this week. So I'd say it's just like lukewarm. And yeah, I'll pass it to Septi. Did you go? Oh, Mert. Take it, Mert.
I went. Everyone wants Mert to go again.
Oh.
Mert.
I went.
He unmuted, so.
In fact, I think everyone went but gone DLR. And welcome to the Stewards Weekly Gone DLR. Would you like to introduce yourself? You're very welcome to stay in here with us if you want to hang out and listen.
Sure, I'm just here learning. I don't know. I introduced myself. last week. We are part of UC Berkeley startup. We're one of the incubators. I'm also part of the Catalyst in Cardano, and with a couple of projects there. I'm trying to learn a little bit more about EEC, and that's the reason why I'm here. I hold a master's in economics. I apply a lot of economic theory behind building loyalty programs. That is another currency. And trying to learn a little bit more about tokens and the capabilities of this type of tool, I would call it.
Cool, super interesting background, and thanks for joining the Stewards call. So it's where we talk about things that are relevant to the stewards. We have an agenda here. Everyone who wants to add anything to the agenda, please feel free. We don't have a huge agenda today, so there's a lot of time. I guess I get to go. I feel overall, I don't know how to explain it, like excitement energy. It's like an exciting energy. I think that we'll talk about the Stewards working group. The funding that didn't pass, I think, is really great. It's a hard reboot to relook. It's a little bit what like Livia was saying. Some of our working groups might have just gotten very stagnant, and it's a good opportunity to sort of have some flow and revisiting original intentions. And I think if we were to start the Stewardings working group again, knowing everything we know, how would we do it differently is a nice way to sort of think about that. And what does the TEC need now? Not what it needed when the working group started, but like what does it need now going forward? So I think it gives us like a really great opportunity to do that. So I find it actually really exciting to think about that. And, of course, what Sampo is working on, this token engineering project intake or token engineering matchmaking or whatever it's called. I think that's probably I think that has the most potential to create the most value for the TEC and the strongest reputation for the TEC if we get that one right. So I'm really a huge supporter of this. And then, the Commons Prize, there's a big, that was exciting. I know it's not directly related to the TEC, but since so much of the TEC are hatchers, it kind of is too. So many trusted seed in the TEC. And just this idea of like, there's so many people in the TEC who I think will be really valuable to help advise the new community on how to deploy a commons and some of the things that we've learned from each of the working groups. So I think that it's just really exciting that that's going to be kicking off soon. So excited, nervous, but like positive nervousness energy is what I'd say I'm feeling mostly. Okay, so we guess I got everyone, right? We move on to the next subject then. We looked at gardens. I had a quick look at gardens. I know we have a proposal party on Friday, but I guess I'm wondering, do we have anything to go over on Friday? When I look at garden, there's nothing in Tau voting, I believe. I mean, there's nothing in Tau voting, and the conviction voting is for funding. I am probably going to withdraw the Stewards because it it's not going to pass. I thought it was only 76K votes needed last week, and now it's 230. So I'm guessing that means abstain has gone up, which just makes it harder to pass now. And so I'll be withdrawing it and proposing a new one once we have the sort of evolution of the Stewards working group and the corresponding proposal to go with funding. But before I go into that, I guess I want to ask, what should we do at this proposal party on Friday, Edu? How do you see it going? Or do we just say not this week?
So and this is why I wanted to bring this to today's call, basically just to check if Sampo and Transparency were going to submit before Friday. Because if they are going to submit, I will leave the Stewards proposal until Friday if we do the Params party on Friday, mainly because for me, it feels more about bringing this attention to people who joins the call and just have questions and, like they could ask questions, you could receive feedback from that and improve for the next iterations or not, however it goes. But it will basically my answer is it will depend on transparency and sample submitting before Friday, because we could use that time to sort of, hey, vote for this or be aware of this, and have, if you have questions, if you have hesitance before voting, abstain, hey, this is the place to ask about this, and so on. So the question is for Septi and Gideon.
Yeah, I feel like transparency, unless there is some advice on the proposal, we are going to make the proposal in 3 days, which is Thursday.
And for Sampo, we're going to review it today in our meeting in a few hours, and it's already gotten some initial feedback. But yeah, I haven't posted it up on the forum yet, so I guess my question is, how many days? I can't remember how many days it needs to be up on the forum before it goes to conviction voting.
Before Livy answered this question that I don't have the answer to, I even if Sampo doesn't submit it before Friday, just letting hatchers that this is something that will happen for me is important. So we are not like caught hurting in the last minute. So because if we leave it for next Friday, it will sort of overlap with all the calls of retrospective sprint planning calls on Friday, and I feel it will be sort of a weird timing. So if we do it this Friday, it will be better fit. Otherwise, we will have to wait 2 weeks more. I feel, or find a better schedule.
Also, sorry, Libby, go.
No, I'm just saying 5 days.
Just in the 5 days, it can also be, if it's on the forum, it's also eligible to sort of be discussed in the proposal, right? Even though it's not fully on conviction voting yet. So if it was on the forum by Friday, I think that would be fine for it to be on the agenda.
Correct.
Kamerayı açayım mı? Konuşacaksın mı? Konuşacaksın. Tamam mı?
Mert, can you mute?
I'm so sorry. Like my just nephew opened it. Sorry.
Chewy, you were.
Yes. I just wanted to add that I'm also most likely going to be posting the new T Academy team proposal, but it's going to be in the forum. So yeah, I don't think it'll reach conviction voting by then.
So we'll have
yeah,
transparency, TE Academy, Communitas, and Stewards. It's 4 proposals.
Yep. And
we won't have the Stewards for this Friday, and Sampo. So 5 proposals in June. Okay.
Correct. So that's why I will say let's make the most parties we can, even if the proposal is not submitting conviction voting, because we will need people to vote, and we cannot rely only on messaging people. So I will say I'm up for this Friday. Griff, are you up for this Friday? There you go. So I will suggest the stewards that represent that proposal to be present on the call, because you will have to defend the proposal. So that's my only comment on that.
So just one question. This goes to the flocking strategy thing that you mentioned a while ago, Griff. I feel like the only challenge with this is if we have a whole bunch of proposals going at the same time, we're gonna create a logjam in terms of conviction voting. So how do we deal with that?
Flocking. It's only, I mean, here's the thing, if people only want one of them to pass, they can put their votes on the one that they want to pass. If someone wants both of them to pass, then they need to dance between the two. Really, whichever one it looks like it's going to pass first, you got to pile into that, speed it up so it passes, and then go into the next one. Usually that will just be the cheaper one, honestly. Unless there's like a huge imbalance, that there's a lot of people who want one to pass, not the other. People who want both to pass should pile into the one that is going to pass first. And people who don't want any to pass, they have abstained.
So what I would do, it's I told Griff to tomorrow send a message to hatchers on general chat or announcement chat, to let everyone knows about this, and then I will, with Costa, do messaging through Telegram today and tomorrow to the people who has been. Basically, I will just message the ones who has been more present at the moment, and then if time remains, I will just send a general message to the rest of a copy and paste message to the rest of the folks. Is everyone okay with this? Does anyone have a time constriction on Friday? Someone can be there or don't want to engage? Is there any blocking of this? 5.
So on the agenda for Friday is Sampo, Transparency, TE Academy, and Communitas. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we will basically take 10 minutes for each one, for each of these proposals. That's sort of the intention.
Okay. Okay. Cool. Okay. Maybe the next thing is kind of related. Quick check-in on the message to token holders. Gideon, do you want to?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Actually, let me just share my screen really quickly. That's probably easiest. So this came out of the retrospective. What was that, last week? I think the top thing was like, how do we just maintain confidence with token holders right now for the TEC, and not just token holders, but that's what I'm focused on right now. I think there was also some concerns about contributors too. And so I just decided to kind of like put together like a very quick, just a high level like outline for what that message might look like. And so rather than going through all the details, let me just kind of go through like high level and just get some initial feedback from you all. So it's kind of like, hey, here's, time's been flying since the hatch. Thank you for being there for us. Part of the reason for this is accountability, and first step in that was our audit. So that's kind of like looking backwards, like what have we actually done with the funding, and then this note is about kind of looking ahead. That's part of the accountability, is kind of like giving you a signal of like what we're working on next. And so grounding that in the mission of the Shelling Point for token engineering, talking a little bit about like what we've been doing so far, just kind of reminding them of things that came out in the audit, but like focusing on kind of like basically what impact we've had so far. So some of the projects that we've funded, some of the operational, like the startup of all of these working groups, and kind of like how the momentum that we've been building. And these would just be very short, like this isn't like long paragraphs, and maybe more like bullets. And then focusing kind of the bulk of it on like what we're going to be doing for the second half of the year. So talking a little bit about some of the services, trying to recruit like this idea of users, like who's going to be using the services of the TEC, talking about the field, token engineering field. These are kind of rough at this point. So like this idea of services being a focus for us going forward, and then also like this idea of the next wave of funding, like who are the next group of funders who are going to step forward, and how we're going to reach them, what is the offering that we're going to be giving to them. So that's what I've got so far, but this was like a very quick, this took me like 30 minutes or less to put together, but I just wanted to kind of like get some feedback from you all on what's missing, what stuff maybe we don't need to talk about, how, anything at this point. Would love to hear. And also, last point is, if anybody's interested in partnering with me on this or giving feedback, like final rounds of feedback, I'd love, it would be great to have that too.
I'll hop in. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I think it's the kind of message that can help. It does read like a year-end review, like a long letter, and probably can be maybe even shifted into something smaller missives and priority. But I love the sort of moment. I love the retrospective, like taking the time to look back and then share our thoughts about moving forward. And I'd be happy to help.
Thank you. If anybody else has got anything, also, you can feel free to just ping me afterwards too if you've got thoughts.
Go ahead, Lee.
Thanks. Yeah, I really like how I think this will give some serenity, like it will bring peace to a lot of people just to understand an overview of what's happening. And my question is on point 5, focus to date on operations of building the community. What is that, more or less?
That actually doesn't match to what the bullets are exactly, because the bullets actually include some of the projects that we funded as like some of the first things. But what I was trying to get at is that, right now, a lot of our focus has been on kind of like building up this community, this commons, so that we can handle lots of people in the future. So like, getting the operational, getting Communitas so that we can handle onboarding people, getting Gravity to the point where, we can handle cases and things like that. That's what I meant by that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. I think my question mark was just, okay, no, sorry. Just talking about the projects that we funded and then seeing more or less the impact we had from that. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to add to that the fact that, not just the things that we funded, but the influence that we've had on other operations of other DAOs and other communities, I think is really important. People who have taken Gravity and using Gravity to approach their conflict management within their DAOs, or how they're doing onboarding. I think these are really interesting points that we can emphasize in terms of just like the accomplishments and the influence that we've had in terms of how we approach community organizing and really growing.
I agree with what Nate said. I think not only funding counts as a value proposition of the things that we have accomplished, there are things that are not economic or not being funded necessarily that have added value to the organization that probably a lot of token holders will be or are not aware of that. Can you scroll up a little bit so I can see the first part of the document? Yeah, so I will say, since just based on our experience with the hatchers and sending their messages, I will actually I will skip point 4. I will leave, like, there are certain things that are like, what is the main thing people will want to read, and things that are the most relevant. So there are certain aspects of this that I think we can not skip, but put maybe at the end. Like for me, it's very important point 5, and really important point 6. These two things that basically contrast the present and the future, I think are key for anyone who has some skin of the game in the TEC. And because we are not talking about strangers. So I will prioritize point 4 and point 5 rather than the rest. I will add the rest at the bottom, actually, or something along those lines. And that's one thing. And then the other one that could be interesting, for example, it's to add presentations that we have had. The presentations in Denver, presentation from TAM, just to add some visibility to, we have not just be inside our doors not doing anything. There has been outputs, external outputs. There has been validation externally from presentations, from whatever it is. So I feel that also people love this idea, oh, you weren't if whatever. So I think that is also something that could bring some validation aspect to our organization. I feel, in general sense, I feel this message, what it seeks, or what I will seek it to have, is to not validate ourselves, but just show that we have built enough stuff to validate ourselves. You know, like this is a solid project, and these are the reasons why it's so solid. So that's it. Back to you, Gideon.
That's great. Thank you. And Nate, I would love if you, I know you don't have a lot of time on your hands right now, but even if you just jotted me just a note on the side of like, oh, don't forget this is like the influences, or anybody, feel free to just drop me a DM with like, hey, here's some of the cultural influences that would be worth just noting. And you know, this doesn't have to be long, but these can be bullets in this thing.
Yeah, no doubt. I can do that.
Thank you. Okay. And anybody has anything else that they want to add on the side, you know, or you think about it later, again, just DM me. This is something I'll be working on probably over the course of this week and early next. Thanks.
Can you drop the document so we can go back and sort of look at it again later?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool. And I guess we'll figure out the distribution. Is that it's like an update from the TEC, forum post, medium post, you know, art, like emails, Telegram, like we just put like, yeah, create an update that we can share everywhere. Cool. Okay. Anything else on the message to token holders before we move on to community spotlight? So I dug up this old tracker that we used to use, and just started adding lines again. I don't know who the previous ones were, but we have a nice list of all of the spotlights that we had done in the past. Anyone have a recommendation for the spotlight for Thursday?
How about we don't do it? We have a voting party on Friday.
Well, yeah, not doing it. It's definitely an option. But you mean to do the spotlight of the voting party on Friday?
I mean, I just recommend people go to the voting party and we don't do the spotlight.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Take the extra time so the reward system can spend a little more time talking, and T Academy and anybody else can not feel so rushed.
Yeah. I also like the idea of not having to have a spotlight every week. Like if there is a spotlight that we have that we really want to present to the community, I feel like the default should be we don't have one. And if we have one that we really need to present, then we make time for it versus trying to have a spotlight every week. I don't know how other people feel about that too.
I agree.
Cool. Okay. So working group Stewards funding. So I looked at what we have left, of course, and we'll just about cover everyone, almost everyone for May. Maybe like 1,000K short. So I think that means that for May, we can cover most people, most stewards and working group coordination leads as per our previous agreement for funding. But from June forward, so from tomorrow forward, our new budgeting will be very different than our previous one. So we're looking to go very lean with the stewards. So far, this isn't formulated yet for advice process, but it will go through advice process, of course, too. And the idea would be proposing we move the working group coordination leads to the working groups funding themselves. So not having working group coordination leads being funded through through the Stewards working group, and having certain criteria for the uncompensated and compensated stewards. So not having all stewards across the board be compensated, but having there be different, I think this idea of functional functions, like steward functions, separating to stewards functions, and then having some of these be like council, like unfunded councils, advisory roles versus very active, present, and moving things forward actively roles. So far, that's the thinking based on the advice process that we did on the last stewards call. but a proposal isn't ready yet. So I expect it to be ready, but I wanted to give this the heads up on the direction of the thinking so far for the Stewards working group. And I don't think a proposal would be ready for Friday because it is going to be so drastically different than the previous one. I think it's going to have to take a little more time going through advice process so that we can make sure it is something that everyone agrees to and can get passed. And does anyone want to say anything about that before we move on? Or anyone want to share their perspective or thoughts or anything you didn't get to say last week that you want to say this week?
I just want to say that I feel this is a great idea and that that it would be a great opportunity for most of the working groups to just revise their own stuff, like manifesto, update things. Like I think this exercise that Stewart is doing should be done by every working group, not necessarily every term, but at least twice a year or once a year or something along those lines. Because I feel it's about what Livy mentioned. It will bring certain fluidity to the TEC and to the working groups, so we are not so fixed and written in stone. Even if in concept we are not, to practical matters we have been like sort of written in stone. So I think just leading by example, this proposal that you are doing, Tam, I think other working groups could follow it up and just see how this approach that you are doing can be replicated by other working groups. I would suggest this will be a topic for the next Stewards Council, so we can talk about how to apply this method to other working groups and just make a update on them. And that's it. Back to you.
Okay.
I think it'll also be interesting to, you know what, I still feel pretty strongly that the reward system should somehow figure out if people are being paid or not. And like I see it having a criteria for compensated and uncompensated stewards. It'd be really interesting if the reward system got in the mix here somehow, where it's like maybe stewards who are uncompensated or people who are uncompensated get more rewards some way, somehow. That's how it was during the impact hour days for that had its own I think we went too far on one direction. Now I think we're too far on the other direction, where it's like, you know, everyone's the same. The people who are here get a lot of the rewards because they're also paid to be and this is like extra bonus on top. And then people who aren't paid can't compete. And I feel like maybe, I mean, I don't want to throw a wrench in your plan, but the stewards could be a good opportunity to somehow, you know, address that concern.
I'm making a forum post for the reward. Like there is many thoughts. Like I feel like we all have, and that's something that came in the last press review. And actually, yeah, let's open discussion. Like, do we want you know, rewards to be a compensation, like an extra bonus, as you were saying? Do we want it, you know, like to be like, you know, we want like get rid of conviction voting and use the reward system as a main source? Like there's many questions which I personally have about the reward system, and yeah, I would like to open the discussion in the forum probably like this week. And I'll also like will integrate what you just said now, Griff, about like people being paid. You know, another question like we should also discuss, like what are people being paid and versus people not being paid.
I think one of the trickiest parts of getting that piece right is that the compensation is so variant so it's not black and white. Are you compensated or not? It's like, are you compensated with a token? Like stewardship is 500 euros a month, dollars a month, right? It's not really a livable wage versus other compensated roles where you might actually make it a livable wage. So I think it'll be tricky just to tune it so that you're not disincentivizing people from being compensated at all, which would disincentivize people from participating in the TEC, perhaps. If that makes sense. You know, like not all compensations are equal. So like it's not black and white. So I think that, yeah, it's just tricky to get that piece will be tricky to get right. Okay, any other thoughts about it before we move on?
Yeah, I just would like to add that I think at some point it'd be useful to try to understand where people are in their compensation needs in terms of, is TEC like their primary source of income, or is the TEC, this whole idea of like monogamous or like polyamorous versus monogamous relationships, like this is a question, right? It's like, is this your only place, or is this just like a place where you're having some like impact and you're working a few hours a week and it doesn't need to be the whole thing, And like for sample, one of the things we're going to be experimenting with is like there's going to be some people who are, going to be getting a steady income, not many actually, and then there'll be some bounties, and then we're trying to do this experiment with praise where we'll like top off praise with some budget. And the reason that I really wanted to do that is because we had like some really good volunteer work. Like people were like coming in and not asking for money, but they were just doing stuff, and like being able to reward that retroactively is, I think, super powerful. And so that's kind of goes to your thing, Griff, that you're talking about, is like how do we tune it so that we can meet all of those needs, And I don't know what the answers are, but I think it's it's worth doing some experiments.
Yeah, I'm going to be paying close attention to how that works with Sampo. I think the idea of having a budget of a praise budget for each working group is a really nice way to help. I don't know, like I guess to make sure that the efforts for the working group are recognized, commiserate with the effort, because it gets a little diluted in the overall praise. Whereas if the working group themselves can actually value their own praise, is sort of how that would work out. Like they can almost, it's a little bit like coordinate, like it's like praise meets coordinate, and it's a new kind of functionality that I think it could be really interesting for Communitas as well.
But it's like Sampo doing the quantification, or you guys are going to use the quantification the reward system is using to reward people in Sampo?
We're still figuring it out, but the original idea was that we would just piggyback on the existing praise system and then take that data and then basically do our own analysis and then spread. It's not a lot of money, but like once a month we might have like 750 die or something like that to then layer on top of that. But this is still experiment, and it's not a long like we're basically saying this is just for 3 months, just to see. I don't want to like set long-term expectations. It's just an experiment.
But I have one question. What would happen if you have a work, let's say work A bring 100 value, and then worker B bring 70 value to sample, but then the reward system says like worker B brings more value than A, just because the reward system right now is not accurate at all. Like, how do you plan to deal with that?
I think in the end, the money that, again, we're still figuring this out, but I think that the valuation that we apply in Sampo would take priority over the praise priority for the money that we're dispersing, and that we could then provide that feedback to the praise, to the reward system.
The idea also that was going to be a really good signal if all working groups were doing that, or if more groups were doing that, because we would have the signal of the contributions that were captured, and also some type of more like enclosed evaluation by the people who are working closer to you or even by yourself. And then that would be another number. And the ideal would be that both these numbers were similar to each other. But then if they're not, this is just a signal that there are things not being captured. And it just brings us to look more into the analysis and figure it out.
I mean, I think it's also worth noting that the quantifiers may not have any visibility into the working group whose praise they're quantifying, whereas the working group themselves will know how much effort or value that would have. Whereas the quantifiers are probably the luck of the draw. So maybe it's somebody that can measure value to the work to the TEC, but maybe it doesn't mean anything for somebody. It doesn't match what the working group thinks the value is.
Yeah, that would battle test our hypothesis that a well descriptive praise will be well quantified. Like now, that's what we're based off. That praises that are written well will get there, but then we'll see if that's happening or not.
Yeah. I'm just going to say my hypothesis is we're going to have better, really well-written praise, but we're never going to have all well-written praise. But we should still continue to fight to get there.
On sort of a tangent, Jue needs a part-time job in the States, and I just to stay working with us. So if anyone knows of an organization or can think of an organization to check in with for a data science role of a really awesome data scientist, but for 10 hours a week ideally, but then at least then she could keep her work visa in the States and not have to leave the country. It would be really great. So it's not like emergency needed today, but we are looking, and Jue is bringing so much value to the praise system that I just want to make an out call.
Does it matter what industry?
I don't think so.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, and so I'll definitely look into that. But I also wanted to add a tangent here too, in terms of the reward system. Is there any issues with actually abstracting praise to actually the working groups themselves and distributing praise to the groups for them to decide on their own how things should be distributed?
I have one thing. I feel like this is being opposite with what we were saying what Livy was saying at the beginning of the call. Giving structure to evolve to the common, but then now we're talking about every working group using the praise. This, the only thing that does it's enforce the working groups to stay more. Just wanted to face that.
Okay. Does anyone want to answer that, or is there anything else we'll say about compensation through the reward system? Oh, I see Mitch jumped off just in time. Yeah, is there anything else we want to say about that? Okay, good food for thought. Chewy would like us to have a short discussion about the Twitter bio. So Chewy, I take it away.
Yeah, sure, Tam. Well, just quickly, this is just the current progress. Thank you, Gideon. Praise Gideon for some of the suggestions that he helped with. And this is where we currently are. So I just wanted to have a general temperature check to see if anyone would, maybe block it for some reason, or if anyone would like to suggest changes or specific insights. This can also help us a lot. And just clarifying, the first paragraph is the current draft for the bio, and then the second one is for the banner. We're going to be making a graphic, kind of like the really cool one that Giveth has, and we'll try to do a similar job than what their banner is doing for them. It's just extra space that is currently being wasted. So we wanted to come up with a graphic that has these different aspects. And well, yeah, I'll just open it up to see if anyone would have any suggestions, or if you also think it's good to go. That could really help us a lot.
I guess I'll just note that the thing I was saying in there is that I'm because Twitter's such a public forum. I think we just need to be careful about what we assume people know. And so even words like, phrases like token engineering is not something that everybody understands yet. And especially a phrase like shelling point. I was talking to one of the folks from the tokenomics DAO this morning, and I mentioned it to him and he was like, what's that? So it's a phrase we all know and we all love, but maybe there's a way of describing that using some more basic words or something.
Social core. I don't know.
Or even just like field, like building the token engineering field or something.
Yeah, and focal point is another good word for shelling point. It makes kind of more sense, and it's often used. Also, I think we should have the word DAO. I mean, I love that we're a commons, but at the same time, like, I don't think people get the capital C commons yet. They will one day. Mark my words, but not today. And even DAO is probably nuanced for a lot of people, but it should be in there somewhere. Like, we're a DAO.
Maybe a tip. So, like really early, I think in my career, I had a friend help me write something, and it was like my CV, and it's just like after every sentence, ask yourself, "So what?" And when I read this, if I ask myself, "So what?" I don't feel like, like we're a commons DAO that funds projects that advance token engineering. So what? I don't know. It's sort of like, what is it's not quite impact. It doesn't really strike, right? It feels, and I'm sorry, I don't have anything like more helpful to share, like a rewording to share, but it doesn't feel very like strong and convincing and compelling. I think that's yeah. I don't know what the so what is. So what if we advance token engineering? Changing the possibilities of the future through token engineering, like something more that's like, what does it mean? So what? Sorry, I'm not more helpful than that, Chewy.
No, it's fine, Tam. I also feel that it might be also like maybe a rearranging issue. Maybe the right ideas are there, but we should try different orders that just make more sense coherently. Like this, so what, so this. Oh, so what, so this, and I don't know. Just a thought. Sorry, Griff. I wanted to say something.
No, that's great. I mean, yeah, I was just gonna say, I feel like for the next month at least, where people will still be reeling from UST, and I don't necessarily want to say that like we should hashtag Luna, hashtag UST. Maybe that'd be audacious, but like at least like kind of a hint to it, because that would give you some so what, right? Like we're trying to make it safe to and trying to make designing tokens safe and working in this crazy ecosystem safer and more secure for everybody, or something that's like, oh, thank God somebody's on that, because I just got wrecked by Luna. I should have seen it coming. And they should have seen it coming. If the TEC was maybe 4 or 5 years from now, the TEC will have helped support tools that would give everyone the ability to see that this is a problem before it becomes such a big problem. Hashtag Luna. No.
Okay. I have a few ideas now, but if anybody else would like to suggest anything, would be very appreciated.
Anyone want to share any other thoughts?
Not on that, but what you just said, Griff, that felt like so good to hear. Like, what were the tools? If I feel like this sparks the imagination so much, like, what were the tools that would have prevented that from happening, or what are the types of things that offer insights for people? Like, maybe this is what we should be focusing on, to look at least to name them.
Monitoring tools, simulation tools, right? Like, could this have been simulated? Definitely. Probably had been simulated by some people, just not given to the public.
Yeah, just there is a guy post who worked for a VC fund who received the case of Luna in 2018, and he commented on this. He said that his feedback to the VC fund was to not invest on Luna because there is the modeling or whatever was not gonna work. So at least that guy did the modeling, but no one read his tweet, no one read his stuff back in 2018.
I just I just want to say that I'll be jumping off from this call and that everyone is invited to the Graviton training that will start in 2 minutes. Thanks, everyone. See you later.
Thanks, Wonka. We're a common goal that funds projects that advance token engineering to help model the world's future economies with TEC as its focal point. It's not there yet. A little more wordsmithing. We have 1 minute left, so I think this is the end of the call.
Maybe, Tamara, we can like put the word democratically there, like model the world's future economies democratically with the TC as its focal point to signal like collaborative economics. But I'm not really sure. It's just come up to my mind.
I also like the idea of characterizing ourselves as an economy.
Okay, I got a few ideas now. Yeah, so I think I can work with this. So yeah, thanks everybody.
Thanks, Shuri. All right, thanks everyone
Thanks,
for
everyone.
joining. Oh, hello, Mackie Z. Welcome. I saw you hopped on, then when I went to call you, you hopped off. Do you want to just take a moment and introduce yourself?
Okay. My name is Michael. Actually, I'm currently new in the TEC. The TEC. My background has been in research on DeFi. I've been in research works. So I'm currently.
The audio stopped for me.
Yeah, you're muted now, Michael.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Now
we can. Oh, now you're muted again.
Yeah, you're
Well,
muted.
It was nice to meet you, and thanks for hopping onto the Stewards call. We hope to see you around in other calls. If you're going to be around, there's about to be a Graviton training in the Gravity voice channel. Thanks, everyone, for joining.
Thanks everybody. Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, everyone.